And you're not doing it.
So we woke up, and it was our last full day, and we decided to go to Gettysburg, which is a village where the Battle of Gettysburg happened, obviously.
Like the town, not a village. I'm not wrong.
Anyway, so
200 people off the city back then.
It was actually 100. So we went into the visitor centre and saw the film, which was about the story of the Battle of Gettysburg. It was really good. It was narrated by Morgan Freeman, I think. Then we went to see a Cyclorama presentation, which had a full 360 wraparound oil painting of the Battle of Gettysburg, which was painted 2 years after the battle happened, which was around the end of the Civil War.
So is that like the original painting?
Yes.
There was not like protective.
It was restored.
It's not put behind like protective glass.
No.
Was the original painting built on the brick where like circles were on? Then we went and walked around the museum.
In 1776,
In such an event, it seems useless to inquire which section.
There was General Robert E. Lee's camping equipment and tent in the museum.
Is that what that was?
And it had a tent and cot. Actually, it didn't have a tent, it had a cot and cooking stuff and desk.
Into attack position. Meanwhile, Union 3rd Corps Commander General Daniel Sickles decides to move his forces forward nearly 3/4 of a mile to gain high ground, far in advance of the Union line. His move leaves the most commanding point on the Union left flank, Little Round Top, unguarded, and Sickles makes the move without notifying Meade.
And dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure.
And then we went back to the car to get a picnic that we packed the night before.
No, Dad, come on, no.
That day. Even doing it at the circus. I've got to manage my own though. After the picnic, we did the battlefield tour. We had a 2-hour coach ride around the very large battlefield at Gettysburg, which went round the town and outside of it where the fields were.
And this was his headquarters right here on the left, the home of the widow Lydia Leicester. So Evergreen Cemetery was established in 1854. Now you're going to see that over to the right once we clear this building. The National Cemetery, our nation's oldest, even older than Arlington, which was established in 1864. Lincoln dedicated our cemetery in November of '63. That's straight ahead of us. So there's Town Cemetery, Evergreen to your right. And right here beyond the wall is the National Cemetery. That's the Lincoln Speech Memorial up above the graves, that big granite memorial. He stood when he gave the speech about 300 yards beyond that monument. The old visitor center, anybody remember that? It stood right here at the top of the hill. So when you walked out the front door of the visitor center, you go right into the cemetery. And that was the parking lot right over there. Remember that, Fred? Okay. Now this view is the view that Union General Oliver Otis Howard had when he dates to 1776. Here it is over here on the right. This building stood out in the middle of nothing but cornfields at the time of the battle, and that was a stop on the Underground Railroad for escaping slaves making their way to freedom in the north of Canada. So guys, right now on day 2 and 3, we're in no man's land. Bullets would have been flying up and down the street back and forth. The southern edge of town was about 3 or 4 blocks in front of us, but there's a house up here on the left, south of town, the Confederates occupy, and they're shooting at Union soldiers behind you, and the Union guys are firing back, and you're about to see evidence of that fire. The 4th house down here on the left, the gray brick Jacob Stock house. You can see the sun reflecting off this side of the house right where these cars are parked. Look at all the bullet hole marks and indentations from cannonball marks. The gray brick house right here, Jacob Stock house. Now, when we pass the house, notice facing the street to the right of the door, there's a little rectangular bronze marker. That reads Civil War Building, July 1863, and that tells you the building was here at the time of the battle. Now, as we go up this street, you won't see that, because the southern edge of town was the, go through the whole thing. Guys, John Reynolds is a big deal. He really is. First of all, he's from 2 counties east of here, Lancaster, right down this road, 52 miles. Secondly, he's a West Point graduate. He's a career military officer, and he's very highly regarded. He's so highly regarded that a month before the battle, he's summoned to Washington, where he gets an audience with the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, and his cabinet. And they lay the command of the principal Union Army operating in the East, the Union Army of Potomac, whose job is to protect our federal capital, Washington, at the foot of John Reynolds. But Reynolds, as I said, is a career military officer. He's seen political interference in military matters, and he wants no part of it. This is where the teachers live, the faculty building. The building behind it is the chapel. And I think I mentioned that was not here. That was built in 1942. But the building behind that most certainly was here. It's the oldest building of the seminary. It was built in 1832. It's where the students lived and had their classes. And it is the 2nd largest hospital structure in the Eastern Theater of the American Civil War. This building, at its peak, housed 600 wounded men from both armies. But here's what I think is really cool. Exactly 150 years to the day after this ridge, the fighting on this ridge, July 1st, 2013, that building opened as a museum. You can go through the whole thing today. Last month, it turned 12 years old as a museum. You can even go
500 men, 30 to 50% of its original strength. The actual veterans themselves come back here about 25 years after the battle. The regimental associations, they're the ones putting the regimental markers here. Who knew better than the guys who fought here where they fought? They identified where they fought, they hammered wooden stakes in the ground, and they went home and they formed committees and they raised money and they decided what their monuments would tell people in the future. So they hired stone companies to create the monuments and have them transported here. Put the principal monument right in the middle of the position that the unit held. A lot of times, you guys will notice, there are smaller markers on either side of some of these regimental markers. They look like little gravestones. They're called flank markers. They show you how far right or left the unit extended. If you look carefully, you may see R or L on them, or RF or LF for right flank or left flank, and you can see the exact position the unit took up, with the principal monument being in the middle position. Not every regiment has flank markers, but a lot of them do. It's a big reason we're such a well-marked battlefield. For a couple reasons. First of all, Gutzon Borglum monographed his work. His name is carved right down here at the base of the monument. Secondly, I wanted you to see the faces of these individuals because they were sculpted after photographs of actual North Carolina soldiers who fought here. And some of them represent certain specific things. For instance, right here in the lower left-hand corner, we have a wounded officer. Notice his right arm in a sling. He's pointing away in the battle right up towards Cemetery Hill. In the back, on the right, is the grizzled old veteran. He's got the hat and the beard, and he's whispering words of encouragement into the young recruit's ear. Notice the apprehensive look on the hatless individual under the flag. So when this was put here in 1929, it was only the 3rd Confederate marker of any type. 1st Maryland Confederate Infantry Regiment put a marker in 1892 over Culp's Hill beyond that ridge. And then Virginia put their state memorial beyond those trees we're going to see a little bit later, 12 years before North Carolina. So I think the folks in North Carolina might have been a little bit concerned about how their beautiful and sizable monument might be treated on the Yankee battlefield. That might explain the fence around. Post rail fences. You were within the range of bullets being fired at you from 3 different directions and canister, shotgun-like cannon fire. About 150 to 200 Virginians actually broke through the Union line at a stone wall on that ridge. But when they turned to look back in this direction for support, this is pretty much what they saw. No one was coming to their aid, and they couldn't exploit their breakthrough in the Union line without reinforcements. So the War Department started to run the battlefield in 1895. In 1917, we get involved in World War I. And the War Department's running the battlefield, and they established a tank corps training ground on this battlefield. The tank corps training ground was called Camp Colt. Only we had 2 tanks, and it was located right over there in those trees. Those houses are, and that's why that housing development is known today as Camp Colt. Took a guy just 2 years out of West Point, promoted him from captain to major, gave him command of Camp Colt. Pretty impressive. 2 years out of West Point.
They weren't here. Yeah, and we grew up a little bit higher. But the other thing is this is some of the bloodiest terrain in our country. This 17-acre wheat field changed hands 7 times in 3 hours between 4:30 and 7:30 p.m. on July 2nd. When the fight was over, nobody controlled the wheat field, and yet it claimed 4,000 casualties in 3 hours. It is said after the fight you could not walk across that wheat field without stepping on a body or stepping in blood, and nobody controlled it in the end. All that fight basically for nothing. So General Sickles is a political general. He commands 10,000 men. He was supposed to extend the Union line along this ridge up here in front of you from the Pennsylvania Memorial to Little Round Top. Problem is, straight ahead of us, those trees, his cannon do him no good. So you got to move the cannons forward towards us out of the trees. What are you in now? You're in the lowest, swampiest ground in the battlefield. As a matter of fact, we're going to cross Plum Run right here, which allegedly ran red with blood after the battles, forever afterwards known as Bloody Run. This is what Sickles is trying to get out of. He moves to the higher ground behind us before the enemy can take it, and leave him stuck down here. Okay, that's one side of the coin. Here's the other side of the coin, guys. He left that hill right there to your right front unoccupied. He was ordered 4 times that day to put his left on Little Round Top. My personal opinion, Dan Sickles never stood on that hill, because I don't think anybody can see that view you're about to witness and then knowingly abandon the hill. But he moved across our front, left to right.
Years ago, one of our park superintendents said, "We're loving Little Round Top to death." And what he meant is it's so popular with foot traffic and vehicle traffic, it was beginning to erode. They closed it. July 26th of 2022, completely closed. And it didn't reopen until June 24th of last year. Closed almost 2 years. So a lot of the surface you're walking on is new. Where our buses parked, that's all new. There was no sidewalk, no railing there, that's all new. They put all that in. So one of the things you can see up here really clearly, guys, is right over the tree line over there toward the mountains. You see that little rounded mountain in front of the other ones? You see those lines coming down off of it? Those are ski slopes. That's Liberty Mountain Ski Resort. Now the reason I'm pointing that out to you is just to emphasize once again how close we are to Maryland. Because you can see Maryland. It's all those mountains behind Liberty on the left. That's Maryland. All the mountains behind Liberty on the right is Pennsylvania. Liberty Mountain is located about a mile on the Pennsylvania side of the Mason-Dixon. All right, now if you look out in the distance out there, you can see the large red Codori barn, C-O-D-O-R-I. It's the one with the 3 white cupolas on the roof. Everybody see that? Okay, look above the white cupola. Look right above it at the tree line beyond it. You see the white steeple? Okay, that's the Lutheran Theological Seminary chapel. Remember we passed that? Okay, now go down to the base of that steeple where it meets the tree line and follow that tree line to the right of the steeple. See how it's a level tree line parallel to the mountain above it? Keep going to the right until it reaches the peak, falls off to the right. You with me? Go back to the peak. Now look to the lower left of the peak. You see that white vertical object completely surrounded by the trees? That is the Eternal Peace Light Memorial 5 miles away. Guys, I'll be honest with you. You come up here tonight, I would say about 6 hours from now, about the time the park closes, around 8 when it gets dark, you're not going to see the Peace Light Memorial, but what you will see is a red glow. That's right, it's the flame. In this kind of clarity, this kind of weather, definitely, you'll see the red glow at nighttime once it gets dark. But then you'll have to get the heck out of here because the park will chase you out of here right after it gets dark. Index finger is Big Round Top. Can you all see the summit of it right through there? Okay, so here's where we are, just below the tip of my finger. Now, it's 2 miles up the Cemetery Hill, and that white dome is halfway up there, about a mile away. That's about here. The trees above the white dome, that is Cemetery Hill. And you might be able to see part of the Aquamarine Water Tower right over there, just below the mountain, the top of the tree line. I always mark Cemetery Hill for you. So here's the situation on day 2. The Union line only comes down Cemetery Ridge as far as where the White Dome, Pennsylvania Memorial is. So the Confederates are over there in the tree line and scouting out the Union position. They've determined that early on July 2nd it ends there. So their plan was to move 15,000 men behind that distant tree line we just drove along. They come out of the tree line right over there. Maybe you can see some houses along the distant tree line. Remember that white car just moved? Okay, they're going to come out of the trees there and then seize the peach orchard, which you can see a little bit of the peach orchard between the second and third level of trees. It's kind of like a V opening of the trees, and you can see little green trees. Can you all identify it? You saw that the peach orchard dominates everything around it. That's why the Confederates want to put their cannon there. Then they're going to attack the Union line from the end, roll it up like a wet blanket in that direction. The problem is, when the Confederates arrive over there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, July 2nd, the Union line has been reinforced. It's been reinforced by the Union 3rd Corps, which is 10,000 men, and it's commanded by a guy who is not a West Point graduate. He's a political general. His name is Daniel Sickles, Daniel Edgar Sickles, New York City congressman. He's a very influential Tammany Hall Democrat, and he has a friend in the White House named Abraham Lincoln. The President Lincoln's up for re-election next year. And even though they're in different political parties, Lincoln and Sickles are friends. And so Lincoln feels if he makes Sickles a major general in charge of 10,000 men, Sickles hopefully next year will bring him some votes, Democratic votes. That's what Sickles is doing in charge at 10,000 men at Gettysburg. You guys getting a picture here? Okay. So Sickles is ordered 4 times on July 2nd by his commanding officer, George Gordon Meade. 4 times he's told, connect with the rest of the Union line where the White Dome is today and extend it right down here. Anchor to the left on this fine hill right here. Doesn't get much better as far as anchoring the end of your line. You always wanted to anchor the end of your line on some good natural feature to make it difficult for the enemy to attack you. It doesn't get any better than this. I'm not talking about just the height and the rocks. I'm talking about what the enemy has to come through to get to you. Right over a big round top. Doesn't get any better than this. But here's the thing. When you come down 2 miles from Cemetery Hill above the White Dome, through the White Dome to here, it gradually declines, the ridge line declines. So what you get is the lowest ground on the battlefield just north of here. We're going to go through that when we leave here. So Sickles has to occupy that ground if he anchors his left here. And what he sees out in front of him is rising ground about 30 to 40 feet up there where those red farms are. His concern is the Confederates would come out of the trees in front of him, put their cannon on the high ground, the peach orchard, and he'd be stuck down the low ground. So on his own, even though he was ordered 4 times to anchor his left here, he moved forward. When he moved forward, his right, instead of being the White Dome, was the red barn with the 3 white cupolas in it. His right wing now runs to the left of that barn. There's a road called the Emmitsburg Road that we were on just now, and it runs to the left of that barn. There's a dark car moving toward the barn from the left. Do you see it? Okay. And to the left of that, there's a white fence up there. Can you see it? Continue where the red farms are to the peach orchard. And then at that point, Sickles' line bends back to the trees and ends right there at the rocks of Devil's Den. One of my colleagues likes to point to the peach orchard and ask his visitors, where would you rather be? Out there at the peach orchard with Sickles or up here? I think we can file this one under no-brainer. General Meade hears about Sickles' forward movement. Now, Meade had been in command 5 days. He was appointed to command 3 days before the battle, and he's from Philadelphia. He's about 47 years old, and the men had a nickname for him. The nickname they called General Meade was the old goggle-eyed snapping turtle. Goggle-eyed because he wore spectacles, snapping turtle because he had a temper. Temper he was known to unleash on members of his staff with the slightest and perhaps even no provocation whatsoever. You getting the picture here? Kind of temperamental. Can you imagine the mood that General Meade is in when he finds the political general Sickles out there at the peach orchard? He's probably 600 or 700 yards from the Confederate line and 3/4 mile from his own support. And I've always imagined that when Meade went out to see Sickles at the peach orchard, he was probably biting his lip when he said to Sickles, trying to control his temper, "General, it seems to me you're a little exposed out here." And Sickles defended himself by pointing to the ridge line between here and the White Dome we're about to drive along, 30 to 40 feet lower, and he says, "Yes, General, but I have the high ground." And then Meade, not particularly known for a sense of humor, pointed to those mountains you see out there and said, "Yes, General, and that is high ground also. Tell me, just how far do you plan to go?" That's what it took right there for the light bulb to go off in the head of Congressman Dan Sickles. "General, I'd be happy to withdraw if you think I should. And this is where Meade did start to lose his temper. Well, of course you should, but I don't think the enemy's going to allow you to. He didn't even finish the sentence. 18 Confederate guns from about where you see the tower above the tree line over toward the houses began to fire in a peach orchard. Eventually, that'll triple out to about 54 cannons. My point is, it's too late to withdraw Sickles. Meade says, hold your position as best you can. I'm going to send you reinforcements. Guys are going to go right up that road. Right up that road that was here during the time of the battle. And that's about the time this man enters the picture. This is Union Engineering Officer Gouverneur Kimball Warren, West Point graduate, Chief Topographical Engineer for the Union Army of the Potomac. And by the time Meade and Sickles are at the peach orchard talking, Warren is scouting this end of the battlefield.
Window. And that allows natural light to illuminate a spiral staircase that goes up to the pillar into the dome. So you go up the steps, you get to the top, you turn left, you find a door opposite Lincoln on the back side. The spiral staircase will take you up into the dome, and there's a door on this side of the dome that allows you to walk around outside the dome. You can walk around outside the dome. Now tonight at 7, in this field right here, a guy's going to come here and play taps at 7 o'clock tonight. That's something they only do between Memorial Day and Labor Day each night at 7.
After we finished the tour, we drove to the Devil's Den, which is where the Confederates pushed to capture the hill that the Union was occupying.
I climbed up the rocks. Which probably wasn't the best idea. Because pull myself up there, me out
there. Looking from Devil's Den towards Little Round Top. Stop laughing. Okay, you said looking from Devil's Den towards Little Round Top.
Looking at Devil's Den towards Little Round Top.
Stood at Devil's Den, looking at Little Round Top from Devil's Den.
Looking at Little Round Top from Devil's Den. Then we drove to the wheat field, which is where the bloodiest fighting happened during the battle. But at the end of the battle, none of the sides actually controlled the wheat field.
And they said that after the battle there, if you went to that part, you couldn't take a step into the wheat field without stepping on either body or blood.
Yeah, where are we?
We're at the wheat field, where the most people died. So the most people died here, and they said they buried them like in the battlefields. But there's several people like buried here. Oh, so
That's a smoothbore cannon.
what's the difference?
It's not rifled, it's got a smooth bore.
Oh, someone threw a Coke bottle down it. Would it not be easy to just pick one up and carry it?
Then we drove to Little Round Top. We had a look around at the views. Then we walked up to the 44th New York Regiment Memorial, which gave us good views.
How you guys doing?
Hello.
Come on, there's not even a drop. There's nothing there, it's just grass.
Oh, Mum!
Then we went to the Pennsylvania Monument and we climbed our way to the very tip top of that.
Why did you have to say it like that?
Show me, William.
Show me to explain. Do you old man commentary?
So what does that mean, William?
So this is everyone from Pennsylvania who served, and if there's a star next to them, it means they were either wounded or died, and if the name is crossed out like this, it means they deserted and were dishonourable.
If it's a star, they were killed or mortally wounded.
That's what I just said. Louise! Finally, we went to see the high water mark, where Pickett was eventually pushed back during the end of the battle. Is this the original wall? Never mind that. Yeah, I think that too. Then we got in the car and drove to Gettysburg, where we went to a place called Friendly's. We had dinner and then ice cream.
Why is that?
This restaurant right now. Going off some more tissue. No. Then we drove through the town before heading back to our Airbnb in Washington, DC. Have a wallet egg.
Like, subscribe.
Like,
It's a thumbs up. Ah.